Good morning, all. This is Devajyoti Das from Product Success Team of ServiceNow. Today, we will see a new feature of Enterprise Asset Management that is getting introduced with Vancouver release. And the feature is linear assets. So, what are linear assets? Any assets that have long length, geopoints like start and end point, and segments with different attributes qualifies for a linear asset. Examples of linear assets will be roadways, highways, railways, power lines, pipelines, etc. Management of linear asset entails create and visualize the linear asset within the enterprise asset workspace, creating different components of linear assets like segments, discrete assets, intersecting, overlapping assets, etc. You can also plan maintenance activities against the linear asset segments and their related discrete assets. Before we jump into the demo, we need to acquaint ourselves with linear asset terminologies. So let's look into the terminologies. Linear asset, as we discussed before, asset which have long length, serial geopoints, segments, etc. is a linear asset like roads, railroads, pipeline. Geopoint is the data representing a point on Earth. Geopoint will have latitude, longitude, and altitude. Geopoints of a linear asset form a route. It can be visualized on the map. Boundary width is if a geopoint is on the route of the linear asset or not. Every linear asset is expected to have a width, like a road or railways, etc. And later we shall see the discrete asset concept. A discrete asset is supposed to be marked or pointed within the boundary width of the linear asset. A marker is a point location that can be visually identified on or near a linear asset. It should contain a geopoint visualized on a map. Segment is basically section of a linear asset with certain attributes. It should have a start point and an end point, or a start point and a length, and a segment of the same linear asset cannot overlap. Discrete assets are enterprise assets consumables that gets deployed to a linear asset within the boundary width and be managed as part of the linear asset. Intersecting asset is basically another linear asset cutting through the current asset and share a common geopoint. Overlapping asset is related to another linear asset because they share multiple common geopoints. Continuing asset is another linear asset, but the start marker of the one linear asset is same as the end marker of the other, or vice versa. Work order for linear asset is basically order of certain work that needs to be done on the linear asset. It can be created on a section of the linear assets. So these are the major terminologies that is getting used in the linear asset management module. Use cases. It allows user to manage different type of linear assets. Basic management includes capturing the linear asset data like the geopoints, segments, name, etc. Finding and retrieving linear asset data from the system and modifying this data. Allow users to do work management, example creating maintenance plans and work orders for linear asset. So let's get into the workspace to see how this feature, that is linear asset, works. We are now in the enterprise asset workspace. So in order to navigate to linear asset, we have to go to enterprise asset estate and linear asset types and linear asset. Linear asset types are basically the types that we will use in creation of the linear assets. Now we could see this is the linear asset module, and there are few predefined linear assets already loaded. So let's see how to create a linear asset. For that, one has to click on the new button here and just enable the geomap by hitting this button. Let's name it as San Francisco Sample 1. One can navigate to the location from here. You can use the arrow to navigate to more granular level. In this case, I will directly use the San Francisco location. And you could see the system has auto redirected to San Francisco location as per the longitude and latitude saved in the system, which is this coordinates. So let's create a linear asset. Let's use Noriega Street. Let's use this part for creating the linear asset. In order to do so, one has to click on this pencil icon, then identify the spot in the street which he wants to register as linear asset. Click once and then map accordingly. Say till this much, 24th Avenue. And one has to double click to end the mapping of linear asset, and you could see the coordinates are automatically populated here. Obviously a boundary width is needed, so I'll put it, say it's 50 meters and length being say 5 kilometers. Description is just for information purpose. Linear asset type is where the linear asset type data has to be filled, and we have all these options available. We are tracking the roadway in this exercise. Now we will save. Okay, our linear asset got created. Now, once linear asset is created, one can create the segments on this linear asset for better management purpose. How to create the linear asset segments? One has to click here, create new, and let's name it as San Francisco Sample Segment 1. Linear asset type is roadways. State, you can select any of them. I am going with the news. Start marker, click on this pencil icon, and that is where the system will directly take you to the linear asset which we identified few seconds before. Now we have to select the segment of this road. For that, we have to choose as close to the start location as we can. If we are deviating from the start location, system automatically identifies and let you know. So now I am trying to identify a very far start location. I left click on the spot and you could see the error message. So we have to zoom in as close as we can and identify the exact start location here. Okay, and you could see system has automatically identified the latitude and longitude. Let's give it a name, 43rd Avenue. Let's say 43rd Avenue 1. This is our starting marker. We need to add end marker, which is basically the end of the segment. For this, we need to click on the pencil icon of end marker, and you could see system has automatically pointed to the starting location of the segment. So let's say the first segment will end here. I left click, okay, and let's name it 37 Avenue and submit. Now we have to save, and with this we have finished creating the first segment of the linear asset. Let's create another segment. Let's name it as this, and start marker, let's put it somewhere here, 35th Avenue, and the end marker, let's just say here. Let's name it 24th Avenue 2 and save. And yeah, you can mention a length. Let's say it's a 2-kilometer stretch and save it. So now we have two linear segments on the linear asset. This is the screen of our linear asset, which has two linear segments. Refresh this filter and segments, we could see the segments are now getting identified or highlighted in yellow and green color. Remember the middle blue part, we haven't identified it as a segment, hence it has not been colored either as green or yellow. So next is to declare a discrete asset or assets within this segment or even in the blue part, which is linear asset. In order to define a discrete asset, we have to click here, new. We need to identify the discrete asset from here, and let's try to get a suitable discrete asset. Okay, and let's just pick this asset. And where should we position the asset? So for that, I click on the pencil icon on the marker, and let's put it on the first segment. I have to left click, and here you go. So let's name it as construction asset, and you can put a suitable description and save it. So now a discrete asset has been defined on this linear asset. So let's see, if I refresh this filter, and try to select discrete asset, you could see now the discrete asset is getting identified on the map. So this is about segments creation and how to define a discrete asset on linear asset. The other components of linear assets are intersecting assets, overlapping assets, continuing assets, etc. And these assets are basically assets that have either cut or went across this current linear asset, or might have used the same route. In order to find the intersecting or all these other assets, we need to click related linear assets and hit the button find relationships. This will then enable the system to find the other type of assets related to the current linear asset. So let's go there. We could see two assets has been found and both of them are intersecting. So we just need to refresh this page here and select intersecting. Now we could see there is an asset which is cutting our newly created asset, and this is the intersecting asset. Again, this icon here gives you all the legends showing which arrow represents what. We will now quickly get into one of the loaded data which has good amount of related assets. CA Road 1747, and there are 33 related assets for this linear asset. Segments, you could see the segment, intersecting assets, overlapping assets, etc. Let's see by magnifying the map. You could see our road is basically this one, and it has been intersected with all these assets. Yeah, this is the name of the other road that has intersected this road. Same way, if we select overlapping assets, you could see this is the asset. In fact, two of the overlapping assets have the same start point, and then it overlapped and ran almost the same trajectory or in a different direction. So this is how linear asset getting captured and its various components are getting accounted within enterprise asset management. We will quickly look into the other aspect of a linear asset, which is work order management. So for that, we will click here. Now we are into the work order management module, and in order to show the functionalities introduced by linear asset management, I have kept a work order already ready and quickly jump into the order task, this one. So this is the work order task for the work order 10028, and after completing all the necessary steps of this work order, we need to get into the work order task, which is this task. And we could see there is the asset usages, and this is where the linear asset functionality has been introduced. You need to click on the deploy asset button. In this form, you have to select asset to deploy, which is camera 123 some dome camera. This is the asset I have chosen for deployment into this linear asset through the work order. Now, where to deploy asset provides three options. One is you can either add to a discrete asset declared on this route, or you can add to an existing location within this route, which basically will then highlight all the segments and related linear asset identified on this actual linear asset, this one. Or you can add to a new location, which will then enable this field, and you can select the new location from here. We will choose add to discrete asset, and you could see all the discrete asset declared already within this route is getting listed out. We will add it to this one, say Swarco variable speed limit sign. So this speed limit sign is now having a camera. So you could see this is where the discrete asset is declared. We will say OK. And here, just refresh, you could see this asset has a parent asset now, and we will save the task. So then, obviously, you can go ahead and complete the task, which will then result into fulfillment of the work order. We will rather focus on the linear asset functionality on work order and open this asset. Now you could see this asset has a parent, which is this one. The state and substate of the asset has been updated accordingly. So if we want to navigate to this asset from the linear asset, we have to open the linear asset, which is Skyline Boulevard North. Let's open it. And we could see the discrete asset here. On 27, we have added our new asset. So we'll open this one. And now you could see this asset is installed on this linear asset and has a child asset, which is the camera that we just added through the work order request. So this is the feature that has been introduced for work order management of linear asset. So with this, we have come to the end of this demo. We have seen what are the different components of linear assets, how these linear assets can be registered or entered into the enterprise asset module, how to associate discrete assets and other related assets like overlapping, intersecting, continuing assets with a linear asset. And we have also seen different ways of deploying an asset from the work order management. Thanks all.